run a blog called don'tcallitbollywood.com, and early on I was writing about Hindi films, which is my main area, and I got some commentators who said, oh, you have to check out Malayalam cinema. It's the best. So I did, and they were right. It is the best. In particular, a movie that I just love and have watched to extremes is City of God. When I say extremes, I mean I watched it once, and then I watched it again immediately, staying up till 2 a.m. on a work night. And then I just started watching it constantly for 2 weeks. Get up in the morning, start playing it. Get home from work, start playing it. Only get about 4 to 6 hours of sleep a night because I had to wake up early so that I could watch it straight through again. It's just the most amazing film. So I'm going to try an experiment. Instead of planning anything out, I literally just pulled random screenshots from this movie by just clicking through. And I'm just going to say whatever I want to say about these random screenshots. First, we have the opening credits, which isn't, of course, the actual opening of the film. The opening of the film is the light falling and the red truck going into it. But shortly after that, we cut into the opening credits, which are different than opening credits I've seen before, I think. What I love about them is this is the beauty of a city. I'm a city person. I live in a city. I love cities. And I'm so used to seeing movies where you see the birds flying in the trees, or, I don't know, leaves and flowers and nature and stuff. But this movie gives us lights and cars, and this is truly one of the most beautiful things in my life. When I'm taking a bus home late at night, and I can look up and I can see the skyscrapers and all the lights, and know that behind each one of those lights is a person, and I'm surrounded by humanity. Speaking of humanity, we're introduced to two of our heroes shortly after the opening. They aren't in that opening, the red truck, but they're right after that, getting back on their motorcycle. And now we're flashing back and seeing them in earlier times. These aren't the usual hero and heroine. I'd seen Parvati in other movies before, Bangalore Days, Inu Muti Modine. I apologize for the pronunciation. But I honestly didn't even recognize her when I saw her in this part. It wasn't just that her skin was darker, it was everything. The hair had that look of hair that wasn't carefully oiled and taken care of every day, because this isn't a woman who has the luxury to do that. The way she was wearing her clothes, the way she was standing, even the way she ate food, everything about it told us this is not your normal heroine. This is the kind of woman that the middle-class multiplex viewer might go the other way to avoid passing in the street. And this isn't our normal hero either. It's Indrajit, not Prithviraj. He isn't quite as perfectly handsome as his brother. And the role he's playing isn't perfect. Again, kind of guy that you may not want to sit next to in a movie theater. A little bit rough around the edges. The way he's walking, the way he's talking, it's all just nothing special. It almost feels like this might be the comic part of the film. And little do I realize that this couple is in fact the heart of the film. Then we move on to the heroine, who in another movie would be our actual heroine, the central female character instead of just one of many. Our beautiful young actress. Again, I'd seen her in other movies. The name is escaping me at the moment. I'm sorry, that's what happens when I just go off the cuff. But I'd seen her in 22 Female, whatever that is. I'd seen her in Ritu. But in this movie, she's somehow less beautiful than in the others, at the same time that we're being told how beautiful she is. You can see the effort that goes in somehow. The makeup is a bit too much. The hair is a bit too much. Especially in her first scene where we're seeing her in a makeup room. So we're being told right away, be aware of the artifice. This is not how this woman normally looks. And then there's Prithviraj. Oh my goodness. He is so amazing in this film. If Parvati and Indrajit are the heart of the film, he's like, I don't know, the god of the film. And we see that here, the way he's entering. In the front, we have this big hand pointing. We have some people talking. but it's all centered on this figure in in the background, this tall figure who's going to come in to dominate everything. And another potential heroine, again, someone who seems more heroine-y than Parvathi's character. She's beautiful, she's in trouble, she's sad. We're introduced to her in this big emotional moment of her life, not in a casual moment on the roadside. It seems like this is the story we should be following. Also, have to comment, every time I see that actress, I just remember her cameo in Ishq. But after we see her, we move back to Parvathi and Indrajit. And everything is slightly deeper somehow. There's been a scene in between here. He's defended her in the movie theater. They've had some conversation. We found out a little bit about Parvathi's tragic backstory and how much Indrajit must love her if he is happy just being her friend. And look at how they're filmed here. They're still, you know, not the normal type of hero and heroine in their appearance, but the way they're filmed is a little more serious. The camera's a little more head-on with them, and Indrajit's face is a little more serious. He's not just the goofy, funny guy that we've seen up until now. And then there's Prithviraj again. Prithviraj's romance, if we can call it that, is of course moving along at the same time. And there's these gorgeous shots of him not quite connecting. That's the tragedy of his character, that he can never quite connect. And that's really the message of this whole movie, that you have to make a connection. You have to feel something for somebody, and they have to feel it back. It can't just be one way. Indrajit and Parvathi, that's the beauty of them. They have so many connections. They make them so easily. Everybody else in this film is struggling to find a place where they belong, a person who they can feel belongs with them. And we're back to her, who is now clearly not our heroine. Notice the way the color tone is different. In her early scenes, it was similar to everybody else in the film, sort of golden brownish. But as her scenes go on and she gets more and more obsessed with revenge, it turns more and more greenish, bluish, sort of unhealthy, unnatural. Also, hey, I found a screenshot from Ishq. Every time I see her, I think of this song from this terrible movie, and it just makes me smile. Shweta Menon. Yes, that's her name, Shweta Menon. Moving on, this next screenshot, kind of a random one, after Parvathi has moved in with Indrajit's community, and photo drops of her son and the glass breaks. What I find amazing in this scene is that this is what gets everybody upset. This poor woman, forced into marriage to an abusive man, runs away to escape him, can't see her own child because she has to hide from her husband. Clearly in love with a man she feels she can never be with because she's already married. And what gets to her is the glass in the photo breaking. It's such a beautiful, I don't know, straw that breaks the camel's back, or sign of the triumph of the human spirit. She can overcome everything else, and yet this one little thing is what breaks her down. And then the interval. I cheated a little bit. This is the one screenshot that I tried really hard to get because it's phenomenal. Both in the clever sort of take a break coming across the screen way, but not the first time I've seen that. There have been similar clever interval shots in other films. But for the way that Prithviraj is stretched out reaching towards the audience, as though he needs us, as though he is so desperate for someone who cares about us that he's going to reach through the screen and take our hands sitting in the seats watching him. And then we come back to something totally different. Everyone's recovering from everything we saw in the first half. Literally recovering. Prithviraj is in the hospital. And we get a completely different kind of backstory here. Our heroine, the actress who in another movie would just be the heroine, not one of many, we're getting her backstory, but not through a song, flashback, or not through a big dramatic statement. Just an old man saying, oh yeah, her. 4 years ago, she eloped with a Muslim boy while at college. And then moving on. It's no big deal. It's just one of many stories from his neighborhood. Also no big deal is her reunion with that husband. We saw in the first half how he's just a terrible person. He's drunk, he abuses her, he's horrible. And now we're coming back in the second half and he's not so bad. And she's trying really hard to make a connection, to be proud of him, to do whatever she needs to do to make this marriage work. And we can see that in this whole little sequence here when they're riding in their car together. But also in the way it's shot, the two of them in the front seat. She's still driving, but she's reaching out towards him. There's another shot a little later where she takes his hand. It's an odd sort of parallel to Prithviraj's interval shot. Here's another person desperate for a connection, so she's reaching out to this terrible person who does not deserve that connection. This is just because I love Rohini. The more I watch this movie, the more I realize she could almost be considered the villain of it. But she is such an incredibly lovable actress that you never feel it. You can see why everyone in her family loves her and forgives her her little mistakes. I don't know what it is about her on screen, but there's something kind of different there, sort of childlike and innocent and wise at the same time. I don't know. Saw it in Bahubali. It's part of the reason we feel so good about Shivu's youth, that he has such a wonderful mother. And of course, it's the reason that Guppy completely broke my heart. And then this is our wedding song. So brilliant. Very similar to the wedding sequence in Angamala Diaries. This isn't our usual classy choreographed wedding. This is a lot of people getting very drunk in a street somewhere with local singers and musicians rooting them on. And I love that Indrajit isn't above it. He's not doing that Amitabh Bachchan thing of being like, I'm so heartbroken and I'm so deep that I can't even dance. No, he's still one of these people. Just because we've begun to realize the heroism inside of him, that doesn't mean that he's not still that low-class, drunken guy we thought he was at the start. All of these things can live together. And finally, we have the heart of the film. This is such a beautiful song. It's such a beautiful song. And it's completely different from everything else in the movie. The sound of it is completely different. It's kind of clearer than the sound mixing in every other scene. And certainly the visuals have a kind of flow and beauty to them that nothing else does. The rest of the movie is very kind of jerky. We're pulled from one place to another. But this whole sequence is sort of still. Everything is just moving in sync with the music, and it's perfect and wonderful. And this is the purpose of everything else that is happening, to make sure that this couple can be together and can stay together. Only, of course, they can't stay together, because the world is never that easy. Which brings me to another theme in the film, making the connections, finding someone to love, but also being willing to fight for that love. There's a lot of fighting in this movie, but it's not fighting just for the spectacle of it. It's fighting because somebody's always fighting for something. And you see that in this scene here. It's just a tiny hotel room with the two of them trapped there, trying to escape, but they're not going to stop fighting. No matter how they're threatened or how scared they get, they have to keep fighting. And that's what you see here. They're almost out the door, and they're attacked again, and Indrajit turns, and he's ready to go right away. He's not afraid, or he is afraid, but he's angrier, and he has something to fight for that's more than his fear. Like this shot. This is the real first shot of the movie. Red truck hits the lamp falls, door opens, leg kicks out. Such a great hero shot. I mentioned Prithviraj looming over everything. This is his intro, one very long leg that just kicks open a car door. And this is his greatest moment. We've seen him fight a lot before. We've seen him fight for his boss, Sonny, who he clearly loves in his own way. But now he has something real to fight for. He has someone who he can sense might be beginning to love him back. But more importantly, someone who loves other people, someone who's self-sacrificing, who's worthy. And so this is the announcement of his first real fight scene and also his last fight scene when he's going to take on all comers and do whatever needs to be done to protect the people who deserve protecting. And then we have the epilogue of the film. I'm so glad I landed on this shot randomly because it's such a gorgeous shot. That's the other thing about this movie. There's a couple of moments that are just so beautiful, like they deserve to be framed and put on a wall in a museum. And this shot in particular, so lovely. You've got the lines of the walls along the edge of the frame, the doorway perfectly in the center, the people perfectly framed within the doorway with our heroine balanced in the middle. Even the way the photo on the wall behind her is rectangular with the smaller square, everything is just perfect. And then the actual end of the film. Prithviraj in his jail cell, finally having made a connection, talking on the phone with his heroine. Because that's what it's all about. It's just about making the connection. And that's why this movie is so beautiful. You describe the plot and it sounds like an action film or a gangster film or something like that, but it's none of those things. It's a film about life in a city, about people trying to make a connection with one another, knowing there's someone out there who can understand them and trying to find that person.